Well, we have even more cards revealed, some pretty neat ones, and also some cards that I think people are really underestimating. Might be a hot take. Let's see though. Warrior first. These are the ones that I feel like people are really underestimating. These riffs, there's 3 of them. They kind of work together. They all use the keyword finale to play your last riff. Now, let's look at these here. Verse Riff, give your hero +2 attack this turn, gain 2 armor. Finale, play your last riff. It's only 2 mana. These aren't fire spells or any other spell school. They're just plain spells. The next one, Chorus Riff, 3 mana, draw a minion, give it +2/+2. Finale, play your last riff. And the last one, 6 mana, Bridge Riff, summon a 3/4 rocker with Taunt and a 4/3 with Rush. Finale, play your last riff. Here's why I think people are underestimating these. There's 2 similarities that I'm making. Some people are comparing these to like older cards, but for me, these remind me of both for Hunter, the Wild Seeds, and then they also remind me of the Demon Hunter relic cards. Now, there's no big payoff of like a big minion that plays, you know, all of the riffs like you have for the Demon Hunter relics. Honestly, I still think these are great. I know people are talking about the fact that your first card, you're not going to get the finale effect, but honestly, there's probably going to be times maybe you don't even play it on curve and you just play it first and then play something else and you wouldn't get that finale effect anyways. Fine. Just like the relics, the first relic you get is not going to be super impactful, but it's that continuous built upon value. Also the Wild Seeds too. Now, yes, the Wild Seed cards are a bit cheaper, like Bridge Riff here, especially a bit expensive, but you get those minions right away. There's no dormant effect or anything. You get those right then and there when you play this. And if you can play a Bridge Riff and then play one of the other ones, you get the value of the Bridge Riff for free with that finale effect. So I don't know. I actually think that these are going to be better than people are giving them credit for. I'm kind of excited for these. And also the value of just drawing a minion and giving it +2/+2. Really great. Honestly, I think that these are going to be better than what people are saying. So I'm actually personally pretty excited for these ones. Now let's take a look at some Hunter cards. We have 4 Hunter cards here. Now, these ones are really interesting. There's a mechanic with a couple of these cards, but let's take a look first here at Aerosmith, a 2 mana 2/3 Naga. After you cast a spell, deal 1 damage to the lowest health enemy. Now, this kind of reminds me of other cards that we've had. We'll see if there's enough like cheap spells. This might get some value. If there's a wide board or something like Imp Lock, for example, this could really be powerful. It does say lowest health enemy, so that could also go face, which is kind of impactful. I will definitely be curious to see if there's enough support with spells to actually make Aerosmith pretty valuable. Then the next one we have here is Jungle Jammer. This is the instrument weapon for Hunter. It's a 4 mana, 4 attack, 2 durability. Death Rattle, summon a random 1 cost beast. Cast spells while equipped to improve. So you cast a spell while you have this equipped, and then it'll be summon a random 2 cost beast, and then a random 3 cost, and so on. Pretty decent value, especially if you're going to be playing a lot of spells. I mean, you don't have to attack with this. You could play a couple of spells, but honestly, even having a 4 attack weapon and maybe being able to summon a random 3 cost beast could actually just be pretty good, especially if some of your other spells that you're playing are also summoning minions for you, like the Wild Seeds and that kind of thing. I could definitely see this one actually being pretty impactful. Now, these next 2 have a very similar synergy. We're going to talk about these, but this is Barrel of Monkeys first. It's 2 mana. Summon a 1/4 monkey with taunt. 3 monkeys left. With this 3 monkeys left, it is seeming like this spell goes back to your hand and then would subtract 1. So you would start with 3, you'd play it, it would summon a 1/4 taunt. The spell would return to your hand and then say 2 monkeys left, and so on until you have used all of them. This is kind of interesting. This really does create a lot of spell synergy for you to be able to use with that weapon and with the Arrowsmith. So pretty interesting. Also, can I just say the Arrowsmith name just amazing. The flavor on these cards, the flavor text, the names, the art is just so on point for this music theme. I love it. Really, really interesting mechanic with this 3 monkeys left. And the next one, also very similar. It's called Bunch of Bananas. It's a 1 mana spell. Give a minion +1/+1. 3 bananas left. So yeah, again, that it's seeming like these spells will return to your hand with that minus, on it. So then it would be 2 bananas left, 1 banana left until you have used that last one. But these spells being able to be pretty cheap, you get multiple uses for having one. That seems pretty fantastic. You can use these again with synergies like the other cards. You can split them up. You can use them over multiple turns. There's just so many different values that you can use for these. Now, on their own, I think Bunch of Bananas is a bit better than Barrel of Monkeys. Barrel of Monkeys, you're going to have to pay for the card every time. Is paying for 2 for a 1/4 taunt good value? Maybe. But is a 1/4 taunt, is that Silverback Patriarch really something that you want to be doing? Probably not on its own. I really do think that these will only be good with that kind of spell synergy and using those. I don't think these are going to be ones that you just want to have for the sake of having it in your deck. They don't feel strong enough as standalone cards. And now looking at Death Knight cards here, this first one we have Death Growl. It is a 1 mana, 1 unholy rune spell. Choose a minion. Spread its death rattle to adjacent minions. Wow, I think this is the first time we've seen an effect like this. Really cool. And it's only 1 mana, so pretty cheap to be able to do that. I'm sure there's going to be some payoff for death rattles. Honestly, this seems pretty flexible because even Unholy has some death rattles with cheap minions. There's some larger minions you could probably use this with. And even if you're playing something larger and then you want to use this, it's really cheap, so you can fit it into a lot of turns. I really like this one. Then we have another location. I'm so hesitant about this because the last location for Death Knight was so good, and even after a nerf, it's still pretty good. But we have Mosh Pit. It's a 2 mana, 2 use or 2 durability location. Spend 3 corpses to give a friendly minion reborn. It seems okay to me. I think this really will depend on the deck build. This is not something that you're just going to jam into every Death Knight deck, I don't think. Not like the last location. That location is so good. It's so flexible. Giving a random minion or small minions reborn, not really a thing you probably want to be doing. This one, I definitely think is going to really want to utilize certain effects, certain like death rattles, or just a very specific minion Reborn is going to only have 1 health. So how effective is that going to be? Nah, probably not in a lot of cases. This is probably really only going to be seen with like that death rattle stuff and in only very circumstantial decks. Next up, we have Bone Shredder. It's a 5 mana, 1 unholy rune minion. It's a 5 attack, 4 health. It's an undead. And Battlecry, spend 5 corpses to trigger and gain the death rattle of a random friendly minion that died this game. We've seen similar effects to this before. 5 corpses seems like a lot to ask for this. But you do get the death rattle effect immediately, and then this minion gains that death rattle effect as well. but you also have to have had something die beforehand that you would want triggered. So this honestly doesn't seem like a card that you probably will play on curve very often. And if it is it a death rattle? You know, it's something that's obviously going to be probably 4 cost or less if you're playing this on turn 5. How good of a death rattle is that? And is it something that you want to be repeating and gaining the death rattle repeatedly? I don't know. This one I'm really hesitant about, but this does not feel like something you want to just play on curve to me. This seems like something that you're probably going to play later in the game after you've had some other things. Kind of very similar to the like Chad Warlock, Chadlock deck that we've seen that runs some undead things. You have the slime, and then you have your reanimator that brings something back. The reanimator is not something you play on curve. It's something that you play a bit later after you've had some undead, or at least one undead that you want to bring back, die. This Bone Shredder has the very similar feel to me of that reanimator. And then lastly, we have the legendary here for Death Knights, Cage Head. It's an 8 mana, 2 unholy rune, 5 attack, 1 health, undead minion with Death Rattle. Summon a 9/9 Blight Boar with charge and taunt. Wow. Okay, so this is a huge payoff, Death Rattle. This only has 1 health, so pretty easy to trigger this. Giving this Reborn potentially with that location, maybe something you want to do. Pretty easy, again, like I said, to kill this off with having only 1 health. And it's got 5 attack on its own, so even if your opponent maybe doesn't have any minions on board or doesn't want to try to kill this, they're still taking 5 damage from it on its own. So this seems really cool. The fact that that boar has charge, also a pretty big payoff. I definitely think that this is something people are going to try to test. They're going to try to make this work. My question here is, this is a legendary, so there's only 1. You really will have to get that huge payoff. It's not something you'll be able to, repeat with having multiple of these unless you can have a good setup. How consistently are you going to be able to do that? Not sure, but this definitely could be one of those decks. Again, kind of like that Chad Warlock, the undead big Warlock. Similar feel to me for sure. It's not as consistent. It can work, and in the right meta, it can even feel pretty good. How often will you be able to do it, and what does the rest of the deck look like that goes with this to be able to either keep you alive to get to these kind of big swing turns, these big plays, or will you have other things along the way that you can apply pressure, and this could just potentially be a finisher? Very much like, I would say, the Unholy Death Knight that we've already seen, the more aggressive version that kind of runs that Marrowgar at 8 mana at the top end. It has a lot of other stuff that it wants to do, and Marrowgar is just kind of a big swing, kind of potentially closer a lot of times, or just a big board refill. This kind of has, again, that same feel for me as well. So it's a really cool effect, and it looks really powerful, but I'm not sure it's going to be everywhere and like ending every game or anything. I don't know. There's some really interesting cards and mechanics in here, but let me know what you think of these cards below. And thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't heard already, if we can hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of March 29th, when all of the card reveals are done, I'll be giving away a mega bundle. So stay tuned. Thank you so much. And if you haven't already, go ahead and check out the previous video where I talked about some of the other cards that have been revealed. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.